Welcome back to the BHAW Army Wrestling Radio Show. I'm your host, Jordan Tom, filed with Brian Rowan. And today we got a guest with a long list of accolades. Numerous recipient awards of West Point Athletic Awards, to include the Maggie Dixon Inspiration Award, Auburn Memorial Award, Most Improved Wrestler Award, the 11th Man Award, Leadership Realm Award. He was a team captain. Now he's got a astute career in the CrossFit with top 50 performance in the worldwide in 2019 and 2020, which makes him a two-time Games athlete. And he's currently the team captain of the Army Warrior Fitness team. None other than Chandler Smith.
Chandler, how's it going?
What's up, y'all? Hey, I'm great. I feel like Jordan hit like all these things that I did, but he forgot the most important part, which was that I was a career like spot starter, and that was very important amidst all that fake stuff. This is an Army wrestling podcast, so I felt like you should have led with that. Like one of the best weight cutters, poorest performers.
Oh, I definitely got a story about that.
Oh no, okay. Thanks for having me, guys.
Actually, Chandler, I don't think I've ever told this story, but the first time I met you was at like the Grapple the Garden. I was with I met Rafferty down there, and you had started a couple of the matches, and I just remember asking Rafferty like, "Hey, who's that Chandler guy, 165? Like I've never heard of him, but like you like beat up somebody like pretty good." And then got beat up by like somebody who was not very good.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is going on here? Like, who is this guy? And he was like, that's Chandler, man.
So that's probably the hallmark of my wrestling. My style, if you will, was just inconsistency. So like, wrestle really well one time and then poor. Yeah, that's what I did. It's me.
That's all right. So one of the goals of the podcast today, Chan, obviously going to have some crossover listeners from the CrossFit community. Definitely want to give them some of your embarrassing Army wrestling stories that they know. But for some of the Army wrestling older guys, they don't really even know what CrossFit is, and they certainly don't know what kind of success you've had. So I want to bridge the two of those like parts of your life together so that everybody can kind of hear like, hey, what are the stories that make Chandler Smith? If we strip away all the other stuff, like, who is Chandler, right? Cool. So try to get some of the stuff that maybe we don't hear in some of your other interviews. You're all over social media. But I know your dad is a strength and conditioning coach in the NFL. Was that when you were younger? Was he doing that?
So when I was younger, he was playing. He played from like 1990 to 98. He bopped around for a bunch of teams because he was a talentless hack. And after he was done with his NFL career, he got into the strength coaching biz with the Denver Broncos, and then he's done that for the last 20 years. Then mixed up being a head and assistant strength coach, and was NFL strength coach of the year back in 2013. So it sowed the seeds for me being an athletic disappointment no matter what I did. And given that I knew that I wasn't ever going to come close in football, I decided to settle with bringing my mediocrity to wrestling. I took my talents to South Beach, the mats, and the rest is history. Not the type of history that you see in books, but like history you see if you look at the round of 32 in the EIWA bracket and then the losers bracket for most of the Sunoco Open and smaller tournaments in the Northeast from 2011 2015.
Yeah, but like my dad by no means was like a athletic prowess or a machine, and clearly your dad had some capabilities. So at a young age, did you have a goal in mind? Like, did he start training you young, or did he just let you be a normal kid in high school? You're like, I want to wrestle, and you started dedicating time to it.
I don't know if he let me be a normal kid. I think it was my physiological limitations determined that I was going to be a regular kid more than I was going to be an NBA or NFL player. That was obviously the goal. Like I wanted to play. And then I moved the goalpost, successfully. I was like, all right, probably not going to make the NFL, but at least want to play college. And I was like, probably not big enough to play college, but at least want to like get some playing time for high school. And it's probably like after that, I was like, I just want to be a good teammate or be one of the loudest yellers from the bench. So that was
how big were you? Right? Because I feel like now you're like 185, 190 pounds, probably ish.
Yeah, 195. In high school, I got to West Point. I was like 5'5", 154. So not exactly like Division I material. I had a Rudy heart though, so you can't measure that. But like, not this stuff you could measure was less than awesome.
I mean, now you're sized enough to be in the NFL. Like maybe don't sell yourself short now. There's still time.
Yeah, on Tinder again, I'm 6 foot 195. So that's what's. I'm just kidding. Yeah, 5'8", 195 is the NFL size either, especially when you move as slowly and deliberately as I tend to do. Not a really fast guy, but it's worked out, I think.
If you wear your lifters out, it'll give you like an extra like 1.5 or 2 inches. So I
Honestly,
wear on the weekends.
That's a really good strategy. I haven't tried that yet, but they're very stylish, so that might be the move. You might see me out in the club getting down the Romaleos.
I love that. All right, so you figure out like, hey, I'm not gonna be a football star, and size isn't in it, or maybe you just kind of like lost that goal, that vision, and you set your sights on wrestling. And I know everybody goes to West Point for different reasons. Some people like grow up and don't even know what West Point was, like me, right? Like I didn't know what it was until my brother got recruited. But I know that was like a goal of yours in high school. Was like you wanted to go to West Point. What was it that was driving that passion and that desire to go to West Point?
So actually, like it came from wrestling. I started wrestling my freshman year in high school because I was terrible and got cut from the basketball team. And we had an assistant wrestling coach for the team. His name was Nage Damus. He's USMA class of 73. And he would talk about West Point and how it had impacted him. And also the team captain at my high school was Doug McFarland, who is West Point class of 2012. And he was getting ready to head there. And both of those guys would always talk about school and seeing Doug train up and get ready to go to West Point. Like that kind of was what pushed it over the edge. But I knew I wanted to be in the military for a long time before that. And I don't think I really knew how to get there. But since that was the first real interaction I had on how to get to that end goal of being in the military in some capacity, that's kind of what pushed me through. And then during high school, I was pretty, achievement driven, I guess, and West Point was doing well in the rankings and everything. And so I decided to walk on and happened to do well enough at wrestling in high school to be good enough to make it onto the team. So everything just kind of came together really nicely that I had like the opportunity to wrestle, that I knew some people who were associated with wrestling at West Point or West Point in general, and just kind of shook out nicely.
Yeah. So talk us through that walk-on process. Like what was maybe like one of your first interactions with either like another guy on the team or like the coach, and like how that came about?
Was it during Beast?
So Beast is whatever. Like, you're hanging out, everybody else is tired and feeling terrible, and as long as you're halfway okay, like you're gonna make it through Beast as long as you keep showing up. This hat's a Legion hat. I know for those who know, it's associated with RAF. And that's really my first memory. And I don't really remember much else from plebe year, but I do remember getting physically assaulted every day with what he called hand fighting, but what was really boxing every day for the whole fall semester. And I'd go back to my room and I'd listen to If I Die Young by the band Perry before I couldn't do my homework because my body hurt too bad. And I was like, I'm actually going to die probably tomorrow. Multiple breakdowns, like walking up the stairs in the wash hall and my legs would hurt too much and I have to stop because felt like I couldn't get up the stairs anymore. But it was kind of those moments that were that sums up the walk-on process. I was in way over my head. I could hang on conditioning, but like as far as wrestling skills and hand fighting especially, man, like I think that is probably the biggest difference between high school and college wrestling. A lot of people say the mat wrestling is, but for me it was like just people never stopping the hand fighting and how much that hurt. That's what I remember the walk-on process. And basically I didn't quit, and Hesketh was like, you can stick around. So
I think it had something to do with probably how hard you're working.
I can't remember. Was that Hesketh's first year, your plebe year?
Second year.
Second year? Oh.
Yep.
Well, I'm sure it had something to do with how hard you were probably working. But in your CrossFit career, at least, you're pretty forthright about what you want to accomplish, your goals. You're really like a driven person from, everybody's perspective. Maybe like looking back at your wrestling career, I mean, I know you're joking about how it was marginal at best, but you still were a Division I wrestler, which is, more than 99% of people can say. So what were your goals considering you were a walk-on? I mean, and you end your career as a team captain and a recipient of pretty much every award you can win, you won. But like, what were your goals during the time?
My goals were to start and to be a team captain. I honestly, I know everybody ends up saying like, you want to be an All-American and stuff, but my talent capsule, if you will, I knew was probably not going to max
old
out.
School reference right there.
Yeah, I think Raph
what reference is that from?
Talent capsule. Raph had probably mentioned it before. It was a saying Coach Heskett would use to talk about people who had no athletic ability and why they weren't doing any better because their talent capsule was full.
It was like a low-key diss. Yeah, it was like a low-key diss for like his way of motivating people.
That's messed up.
He'd be like, this young guy over here, he may have a large time talent capsule, but it's not full, okay? And this young man over here, he has a tiny talent capsule, but it's full because he tries hard.
There was nothing more definitive of a meeting at that time than like the double-edged sword compliment of like, you did this well, but you also did not do this well, which is good because it was a good way to take down the dose of realism. But yeah, like I remember sitting down with Coach Young. He was like, we gotta say that you're gonna, or like your goal should be to be All-American. I was like, okay, if you say that's my goal, then that's my goal. But from just a personal perspective, I was like, I want to start as much as I can. I'm sorry. I want to start as much as I can, and also, at the end of the day, be a team captain because I looked up to Raph so much. It's a very weird thing. I don't know why I'm friends with him. He borderline. If it had happened outside of a wrestling room, like he could have gone to jail for how badly he used to beat me up. But for some reason, I appreciate him for it, and we're friends now. It's a weird setup, but yeah.
I understand. So as we transition from talking like wrestling career specific, I definitely want to still talk some lessons that you learned from wrestling and how it translates to CrossFit. But I'm going to give a story here because I specifically remember New York State, I think it was, and we're at the hotel. I finished my weight cut and I'm like chilling out. And it's funny, I always remember the story because obviously anytime CrossFit comes up, I use that as an opportunity to be like, yeah, I know Chandler. Yeah, I know him. So the next thing that comes out of people's mouth is something typically like, he's super jacked or, he's, that dude's a freak. And I'm like, well, he also is probably one of the hardest. Yeah. I'm like, don't shortchange the man. Like, he's also one of the hardest working people I know, if not the hardest working person. And I can think back to this story. Like, we're at New York State, finished my weight cut, and Chandler comes to me and he's like, hey, like, I'm broke, man. Like, I don't know if I can make it tomorrow. Like, I'm done. And I'm like, all right, let's like kiss back. Like, let's figure out a plan. Like, how much do you got to go? I don't remember what it was. It was like a couple times ago. You're like, I've already worked out for like 3 hours. And I remember telling you, like, hey, man, if you like don't do a Murph as like a way to cut weight and you just like do as little work as possible but continue to sweat, then you'll make it. And that was like a super hard concept for a man that like just wanted to work out and put this hard output to try to actually get better at like fitness. Like I would come in on the weekend and you'd literally be in there just doing like a friend in the wrestling room on your own. Like, what is this guy doing?
You do the best you can with what you know. And that's pretty funny to hear that in specific of like, cause I remember that moment. I remember several others. It's never a concept I think I really grasped throughout like the duration of my wrestling career, like how to try to do two things at once with like goals that weren't necessarily working concurrently. Like my goals for wrestling should have been getting down to the weight I needed to be at, probably working on the stuff like my weaknesses. I remember Coach Young once told me like, you're not going to lose a match because you're not strong enough. And I heard that, but it went right through this year and then kept going out the other year. And I kept doing that. So like, I never really, optimize myself for wrestling, but I think that also kind of laid the seeds for being good at the stuff that I was maybe working towards a little bit too much in my time as a wrestler. Like they definitely did help each other, but like not as well as they should have. And it led to a lot of pain in the weight cutting department over the last 3 years. But yeah, that New York State story is that was the first time I think I got the chance to wrestle varsity. And it only got worse from there.
What year was that? Was that like your Cal first year? What year was that?
Plebe year, 2012. Yeah.
Yep.
But
so talking CrossFit now, but still with the context of wrestling. So, you talk yourself down sometimes, but you're pretty darn good at CrossFit. Okay, like you're top 50 in the world last 2 years. You're a games athlete, which not very many people can say. One of the things that you always say prepared you for your professional career in CrossFit or whatever it is, that Army wrestling taught you how to suffer. Like when you say that, what does that mean? Like, is there something particular, like getting beat up by James Rafferty or like cutting weight at New York State? Is it everything? Was it the lifestyle in general? Like, what does it mean?
I think it's everything. It's lifestyle in general. Remember I think it was while you were still there. So Yucker Cow year, Phil Simpson came and talked to us, and he was talking about like how, you know, it's not an optimal situation at West Point, but if you can succeed in wrestling there with all the other stuff that you have to do, you can succeed anywhere. And, you know, there's the Dan Gable quote. Everybody likes to quote about like, you know, once you've wrestled, everything else in life is easy. Like even from a physical standpoint, making it through a Army wrestling preseason where you were pushed so much further than your limits, and or even make it through like a Shark Tank practice where you literally were it was ensured that you got broken. Like there's no outside situation that could put me at that level of discomfort. So I feel like I've seen it all. Like there's been workouts I've passed out. I've thrown up all this stuff in the wrestling room, and so what else is going to happen in a CrossFit gym? Like I have no fear of stuff that I'm going to do to my body physically because someone else has tried to do worse to me before, and I'm still here. So I think that's what it means. Like when I say I learned how to suffer from Army wrestling, just like taking a super high physical toll and coming back. I tell people often too, like I worked out more like in college wrestling, like for a longer duration and harder, because when you're, you know, doing live goes, you're like competing to survive, and there's no like, let's do this live go at 60%, take it easy. Like someone's coming for your neck every single time, and you're wrestling live pretty much every day for 4 years. But you'd wake up, cut weight, we'd do J-hour lifts, we'd hit practice for 2-3 hours in the evening, and then you cut weight again. So I was working out like 5-6 hours, and folks are always like, you CrossFitters are crazy. I'm like, it gets way crazier than this. Like, I promise you, it's not that bad. So yeah, it's just nothing that I haven't seen before, I don't think.
If you could look back, like, like I'm obviously like a beginner in the CrossFit world, obviously. But when I look back, like wrestling, like the lack of recovery that we did, like in high school and college, is that something you go back or you think about? Like I think about all those things. I'm like, man, I didn't pay attention to my recovery at all. Like now, I mean, I'm almost 35 years old, so recovery is like 90% of my job. But do you think about that aspect of it at all, or you know, as you're training, and you obviously spend a lot of time, you know, in recovery now, I'm sure.
Yeah, first off, you're not just an amateur. You look very good. You flipped up your shirt earlier. I don't know if you had it, but you definitely have a six-pack. I don't think you look a day over 34. And I know JT always says you're old and washed up, but I think he's crazy for saying that. Anyways, yeah, like once you've made it through those like hard physical exertions with basically no recovery, because you're still staying up till midnight to do your schoolwork and whatever, waking up 5:36, like everything else gets so much easier. So last night wasn't my most optimal night for recovery, but you know that your body you can still improve through it. It helps a lot to have better recovery. I think that's the best part of like what's happened last year recently for me. But even since I've been back, since I left school, like I've more consistently gone to sleep since I graduated West Point than I did at school, and so that's helped your physical performance. I think you get to see it a lot better when you're still trying to perform at a high level. Like I think most of us who finish at school don't continue to have an avenue to compete and perform at the same high level. So you can't really see the performance boost that you get by being able to sleep and eat the way you want to, because you're not missing every dinner because you're cutting weight or all that jazz. So yeah, I've definitely noticed the effects of recovery, and having been in a situation for the longest time where we didn't get to maximize that has made me acutely aware of like how important it is. And I try and take it pretty seriously.
Do you think that kind of, some of those things, sleep and nutrition, was one of the things that made you kind of take some of those dramatic jumps? Like, obviously you were competing in the open and everything, like right out of college, but like you clearly put on like size and then a performance jump. Do you think that a lot of that was that, or do you think maybe you just matured physically? What was that?
It's some physical maturation, but it's also just like, I trained for a year of just CrossFit. I think if you train for a year for anything, like the jump Casey made when he was training for the marathon, right? Like he was running the X mile X minute 5 mile to start. And then by the end of it, he was running a marathon at a certain speed. I wrestled my last match February 22nd, 2015. The only reason I know is because we beat Navy that day. And that was the end of my career. I lost because I'm terrible. And I was injured at the time, and Coach Ward was like, all right, well, you did your best. You're off the pasture now. Go to the glue factory. And so I started doing my CrossFit and everything. And then a year later, I made it to regionals. So that's like from then to then is a year of me being at Fort Benning and able, so in an environment pretty conducive to working out. Also being at West Point as a GA, which is another environment pretty conducive to working out. Only training to make it to regional. So it was, I think that's pretty much where you can just count the jump to. I was sleeping for the first time, orienting my life around getting good at fitness, which I'd never done before, and showed some results pretty quickly, which is also addicting. Like, it's after 1 year, it's like, if I got this far in 1 year, how far can I make it in 4? How far can I make it in 5? So on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you see a little bit of success and it drives you to keep going further and further and further. So on that same note, it's like, you're talking about sleep and you're talking about different things, but those first couple of years, you're also serving active duty as a lieutenant. So you had, a whole platoon of people, somewhere around 40 people that were looking to you to make decisions and lead them and all that stuff. And then you went on deployment too. And as an armor guy, like, to put it in context for the people like in the CrossFit community that don't know anything about the Army, like, you're going out to the field to gunnery, and which means you're literally living off your tank for, 3 to 4 weeks at a time. Like, how are you working out during this time? I mean, other than like body weight and calisthenics, like, how are you working out?
So I took a really long-term approach to my training, and it's led me to have some weaknesses I still have now, but the baseline theory was that, like, there's always something I can be doing to improve. So it might not be the very best thing I can do to improve, but there's always something that I can be doing. So for the times we were out in the field, like, I know that if I wasn't using the turret to scan, I could turn the turret halfway and use the CITV to scan, and I could do pull-ups off the side of the bustle rack. I knew I could always bring a kettlebell. So if I was like getting ready to head out to the bathroom, I could always knock out a set of like rows or shoulder presses or something. And then broadly speaking, like, for my time as a PL, and something I had to learn to get under control. I don't think, if I'm being very, very honest, I don't think I did a great job of being as relatable as I should have been for my first platoon when I was a tank platoon leader. I had good leadership for both of my platoons, from my company commanders, Captain Plant and Captain McFadden. They were very patient with me, but as a tanker, I probably went too hard for PT, right? Like, I was so intent on making PT a useful part of my day that I was like, regardless of whether or not you guys are in shape, I'm in shape. So you're either going to keep up or you're going to get burned. And I had to kind of learn to adopt that a little bit, which I did over time, but I made sure that PT was actually a useful hour of physical training for my day. And then as soon as I was done with work, I'd go and train. I didn't do anything else. And then every single time we were in the field, I'd either blow myself up with volume completely before we got to the field. So it was like a recovery deload week that I needed because I was in such terrible physical condition at that point, or I'd make sure that I brought enough stuff to where I could be doing something. And like that, doing something, and even that attitude of just knowing that in any situation, there's something there's a way for me to turn it into a win, has kind of influenced how I've done everything since then. Like, you always get bumps and bruises and injuries and everything, but there's never been a time, especially after that one injury that I'm sure we'll talk about, where I was like, okay, I can't work around this in some fashion. Like, I'm going to get better no matter what. Yeah. And I think I was just really stubborn and obstinate about that, and it allowed me to feel like I got better even when we were in the field, even when I was probably not getting better,
Sure. So for the disgruntled person in the Army that's looking at it and you're like, well, he must have got some kind of special treatment because there's no way you can look like that and be in the Army. Tell me about a full day schedule of going through PT to where I know by following you, like, you were going to the gym literally after work at 8 o'clock at night. Like, walk me through that whole day of how you were doing that.
So standard day in the life of PL Chandler, wake up 5:17. That was like my standard wake up time. I was at Fort Riley, Kansas for most of my PL time. We went to Bulgaria as part of Operation Atlantic Resolve, and then was in Benning for Triple C, blah, blah, bounce around. But Fort Riley times where I spend most of my time. Wake up 5:17. You know, you're at the office by 5:45. Get a little stretch in while you're doing the commander sync and all that jazz at 6. PT starts at 6:30. You PT with the guys from 6:30 to 7:30. Immediately after, depending on what we did for that day, I'd go and try and supplement it with something of like a similar nature. So if we ran, then maybe I'm doing like a Metcon because I've already loosened up, like my heart rate's elevated. If we did a muscular endurance workout, maybe I'll go and do like a low intensity row or something like that. But basically do something immediately afterwards that is CrossFit specific. After that, you know, you're basically starting to work 8:15, 8:30, whatever you're done, showered, going to lunch. For my infantry platoon time, I was able to get away every now and then during lunch. But as you all know, lunch is a very nebulous concept in a lot of places. So normally you're just working right through lunch. And so, yeah, I really wouldn't get to do much during lunch. But as soon as work was over, I'd have all my clothes and I would go straight to the gym. It's 6:30 when I get to the gym. Most days I train. I had a rule where I never train past 9. Because anything after 9, I kind of lose out on recovery for the next day. So it's 18:30 to 2100. I'm training. I get back home, 21:20. I microwave a pizza or something for dinner, like something. My nutrition was very much not on point for the nation as a Big Red One soldier because time constraints. And there was some meal prep services and everything, which kind of helped too. And then, go to bed, 10:30, wake up, do it again. But it was I think it was the simplicity of the schedule. Like there wasn't, and I'm in a unique situation. Didn't have a wife, didn't have kids, very rarely had a girlfriend. Like there was never really any change to that schedule. It wasn't like, all right, on Thursdays I have to go drop little Chandler Jr. off for this, or I have to watch a movie with my girlfriend this time. Like it was that schedule every day that I was not in the field for the whole time. And so, yeah, I think it is a common misconception. Even last year, I made it to the games from Triple C, not like as part of the Army Warrior fitness team. And I wish more people knew that because I think folks immediately write off the possibility that they can perform at a super high level while being active, or while serving as platoon leader. There's a lot more possibility for it happening than I think folks are aware of, but it does basically require the forfeiture of everything else because there's not enough time in the day to do it all at a high level. And also I didn't do it all at a high level too. Those aforementioned bosses will tell you that was just okay, if that PL, but I tried hard.
That's crazy. You literally had no life.
Yeah, it was a continuation of what I did at West Point. So that's another way that Army West Point wrestling prepared me because you can't really have a life when you're cutting weight for 4 hours and wrestling for another 3 and got homework. So I'm well trained in the art of having no life.
Chandler, I see a lot of similarities between you and John Anderson, one of the previous guests on the show. Have you talked to John much? You know, I mean, the way I would love to see you guys do a low level CrossFit workout, something where it's like doesn't take a lot of technique, and just to see whose motor can go, because I know John can go hard. I know you can go super hard. It'd be really, really, really interesting to see that kind of workout. But have you talked to John much?
Yeah, I have. John's amazing. I've talked to him as a cadet. Remember we saw him in Vegas one year, getting ready to probably win the U.S. Open again, as he was and is want to do, because he's a marvel of just humanity in general. And then after I graduated, I talked to him a little bit about, like how his story, because I was looking to him for encouragement, and that also helped, knowing that he spent 5 years just doing the PL thing, kept his fitness up at a world-class level, and then was able to transition into being a world-class competitor. That was encouraging. And then in 2017, shortly before I went to Europe, I tried out for the All-Army team, and he got me up to the Springs. I got to do the camp with some of the guys out there. My unit did not release me to go to the tryouts and everything, but got the chance to throw down with him, see how ridiculously insane his cardio was and how tough of a wrestler he was. But basically he's been a source of inspiration and motivation the whole time that I've been aware that I wanted to be an athlete while also being a soldier. And I like that concept. I've actually talked with Flo semi-recently about doing something like that. So stay tuned. I don't know if it'll be with John, but the idea of doing a wrestling CrossFit crossover and kind of trying to get
That'd be
some
awesome.
new viewership from folks who are not within the CrossFit community or not all within the wrestling community and intermixing, because I think there's a lot of similarities and you could probably draw some respect for the hard work that each side does. So hopefully that idea materializes sooner rather than later.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that actually at Wadapalooza this year when I was going spectating. I was looking at Flow Elite, and I was like, man, there is not a lot of viewership on here, and their wrestling platform gets so much. I mean, it's so easy to translate between the two. And I think they spend a lot of time combining between flow grappling and flow wrestling.
Yeah.
Combining the two. I mean, I think Flow Elite and flow wrestling can really kind of grow together too.
I hope so. I think we have maybe our personalities on the CrossFit side. I'm not one of them, but like there's some folks, with like millions of followers and things like that. So like their individual reach is higher, but then the reach of the brand, the flow wrestling and the flow grappling is a little bit higher as well. It's different demographics. So I think, again, like some cross-pollination there would be beneficial for both groups. So hopefully this all ends up working out.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see you throw down with John or anybody. But speaking of John, so I remember one thing he said in his was basically how he was managing his Olympic dream with being an active duty, whatever his duty title was at the time. And one of the things he said was it can be easy to look at it and someone can say like, oh, well, you're kind of being like selfish or you're thinking about yourself and your own goals. But his perspective was success breeds success. And actually me striving for my goals and me working towards them is actually helping those that I'm leading to become better people as well, because they're seeing someone go after something. And that's not something that like people typically have, I guess, displayed for them. Was that kind of the same case for you? Like, I can't really imagine like if I went back in my own career and being a platoon leader and doing the schedule you're talking about and trying to achieve this high goal, I can't imagine doing that. And then like, I don't know, it's just a weird concept.
I don't know if I came at it from the exact same point or the exact same perspective as John, but it's similar. One, I knew that like I was going to be the best version of myself if I was chasing this. Because if I let this dream die in 2016 when I got to my platoon, like there would have been a part of me that was always going to feel like incomplete that I didn't go for that. And then I don't know how that would have influenced the environment that I was responsible for helping create. But like I knew that I needed to go for this in order for me to be the best version of myself for everybody. So that's one. But also I feel like the impact question was not like it's not necessarily limited to how it was inspiring the platoon, but I knew that if I did this right, I could inspire maybe there's a group of wrestlers who are coming up who like are going to move into CrossFit. There might be a group of kids who look like me who are going to move into CrossFit. There might be some other soldiers who are going to move into CrossFit. Like there was an opportunity to inspire so many people. If I got to where I wanted to get to, that was the focus. So even if it wasn't something that was necessarily going to make me the happiest at the time, or like honestly even allow me like to be the very, very best PL that I could have been, I thought the long-term effects of it were going to be like the best for society and for like my ability to bring impact to everyone around me. So that was kind of my focus. Like it's bigger than the right now because I'm trying to peak. And I've always had this long-term approach since 2012 when I first watched the games. So I want to make the games in 2022. Like I gave myself 10 years for it. And I think sometimes I'm able to kind of frame things in terms of long-term planning. And that's how I always stayed focused on it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we talked about how you were active duty, you qualified for the games when you're at the career course, which a lot of people probably don't know. But then you go into the Army Warrior Fitness Team as a new, objective for the Army. Talk about maybe what their mission is real quick, plug it, and then what does now your daily life look like with them?
Okay. Yeah, so this is we work within USREC, which for those who don't know is like United States Army Recruiting Command. And recently the Army's seen a need to try and do some more active targeted recruiting on military age males and females that are fit enough to make it through the MEPS process and fit enough to not get injured during basic training and all these things. So we are like a targeted effort because the average CrossFitter CrossFitter, functional fitness athlete, we're not just limited to CrossFit, is fit enough to do those things that I mentioned. So we go out, we perform, we share our Army stories. I kind of tell them, I'm a tanker. We got some aviators, all these folks coming from all different walks of life. And we talk to them about the Army. We also do some direct recruiting. So, like if you send a message to me and I end up responding, I'll put you towards a recruiter and everything. But basically, yeah, just sharing Army stories and getting more folks to join for tapping into audiences that we maybe didn't have an in with before this, like the Army or the Marines and the Air Force have kind of, if you go to Wadapalooza or some of these other events, you'll always see a heavy presence of those branches there. And this is kind of our attempt at getting into these areas and getting some of these fit young folks to decide to be soldiers rather than crayon eaters or chair warriors.
That's right. So do you wave your half finger at them when you're doing the recruiting speech, or what?
I always make sure I do. I said, if you kids like hate your digits, if you want to live a life of guts and danger, be a fat boy tanker, and then you can lose a finger. And kids are like, wow, like where do I sign up? How quickly can I get in? When do I ship?
So who writes the programming now? Do you write the programming for the Army Warrior Fitness team? Do you guys follow some other gym? How's that work?
I'm gonna be honest. I did a lot more of it before this March. Once things have kind of fallen apart, we've basically just gone. I've always been like tangentially associated with Misfit Athletics, and we more or less follow that. My personal approaches to CrossFit reflect some of the lessons I learned as a platoon leader, and then also like growing up. So my dad being a strength and conditioning coach in the NFL, I do the strength pretty much always, and the Army teaching me that the importance of conditioning early on, and that it doesn't necessarily directly limit your strength, means that we always like start with some sort of morning monostructural conditioning effort. I program those pretty continuously, but the Metcon pieces and the accessory work, I take it back. I do the accessory work too, but the Metcons, which is pretty much like the magic of the methodology of CrossFit's coming from Misfit. I largely do that because it gives me scores from other Misfit athletes who are like games level to compare with, and kind of keep tabs on the Army Warrior Fitness team athletes to see where they're at. So it's kind of a collaborative approach, but I have taken way less of an active role in it because the touches I was putting into it were to try and prepare us for Army Warrior Fitness team specific events. We were getting ready to go to the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Championship, the MAC, in April. That got canceled. Then all of a sudden it was getting ready for Rogue, which is going to be different than the other athletes who weren't going to Rogue. And it's just kind of been so in flux that I changed it within the first couple of weeks of things kind of getting crazy. I rewrote the whole program till the end of June and mid-March, and then it changed, and I did it again, and it changed again. I was like, all right, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, you guys can pick your pieces and everything. So it's become a lot more decentralized in the last few months, and I'll probably return to that as I work towards getting out, because fun fact, I'm getting out. So.
Oh wow! Bombs dropped.
February. Well, I got my brigade commander meeting on Friday, so we'll see if they agree to let me go. But February 21st is when terminal leave's fixing to start, and then May 1st final out.
Cool, man. Well,
crazy. That was literally the exact dates of my transition in 2018.
Great minds think alike.
February 21st, May 1st. Kind of crazy.
Heck yeah.
Okay, so what's the plan after that if it's approved then, Chan?
So the Games 2022 thing has kind of evolved over the last few years, especially as I've become like a full-time professional athlete, which you asked me and I didn't really get to, so I can answer that in this part too. I want to win the Games, so that's as long as there's something. I just got back from a summit in Colorado with the new CEO and some of the big movers and shakers. Went on a run with Rich Roning, and he caught me, which was really embarrassing. So I thought I was faster than him, but that's okay. And the CEO beat me too, and I did not do a good job of representing the Army at running. But like, I've been hanging around. I got enough faith and belief in the sport that it's gonna stick around, and that's been my goal for the longest time. So I'm gonna put all my energy towards pursuing that for a little bit. Be a full-time burpee artist and whatever thruster enthusiast. And after that's complete, I'll probably end up going back to school or working my dream job. If I have done well enough for myself, working my dream job, being like a high school wrestling coach and hanging out in one place for the next 20 years, getting a wife, making some kids, and, doing that whole thing. To also answer the earlier question about the schedule for the Army Warrior Fitness team, quarantine has kind of put things in flux, but on a normal daily schedule, when we're all training at Fort Knox, we'll be there at 08:30 we'll normally be there at 08. You do like your mobility and everything at 8:30. We train from 8:30 to 9:30. Have a pretty set like hour of recovery work directly after that 8:30 to 9:30 conditioning and skill session. So an example would be like run 5 miles, and then also after you're done with that, you got 15 minutes to work on like handstand walk, obstacle, going up the stairs, going back down. That's like your morning session. You recover afterwards, do all that stuff. I'll check everybody's results on the Beyond the Whiteboard. I'll do all the, and this sounds goofy. Raph gave me crap for this last time. I had like a YouTube video, and man, there's no way to not sound pretentious about this. So I'll just acknowledge it. Like correspondence has become almost a full-time job. When I wake up, you have 100 or something texts on day. If you spend a day like not on top of it, and then also doing like interviews and things like that. But like there's a pretty set part of doing the hashtag influencer thing in the middle of the day, in addition to like my coaching duties, which is like reviewing the training, kind of seeing what everybody else has done. It's a very passive and like not like and soft skill set, but it helps with everything else going on. So like if I know what all the other athletes are doing and I'm also cultivating those relationships, like I'm always able to get on teams for good competitions. I'm always able to know people's scores for the open. I'm always able to tell my guys if they're doing well or if they're doing poorly. And like that doesn't brief well, which I've learned. When someone's like, what are you doing in the middle of the day? Oh, like I'm talking to this person. What? Why aren't you could probably serve as the battalion AS3 in your spare time. Like, no, like this is a very important part of what I do. Anyways, that happens in the middle of the day. Lunch at 1300 to 12:30. We normally like start warming up. Second session starts at 1300. That one's a little bit longer. Goes 13 to 16, stretch for an hour, 16 to 17. Days complete. But like everyone has some additional duties and responsibilities. To be honest, mine's a little bit different than some of the other members of the team, just because I compete at a little bit higher level. I take a little more volume, and I'm training a little bit longer. So mine's less serious. We have some folks who like are actually full-time company commanders while they're there. We have folks who are working like actual supply jobs while also doing the fitness thing. But I get a little bit longer leash than most, and hopefully Uncle Sam has been proud of the results I've been able to put together in the last year as part of the USAWFT.
Chandler, it sounds like you need an assistant.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's open for anyone who
How do I
is
apply?
open for anyone who's willing to move to Louisville, Kentucky and hang out in my shabby apartment. I have a mattress in the living room on the floor from when my brother was here, stranded as a West Point refugee, attending University of West Point online for the last 3 months. So there's a spot open if you want to leave your family and hang out on the floor mattress with the twin.
I'd love nothing more than be your quarterman at the games. It'd be great.
I am allowed to take one person. So if my roommate can't go and you guys have a whole week free and you're interested in going to the coronavirus capital of the world in California,
Sure.
Maybe Texas, or depending on the day, yeah, come on through. I'll throw your name in the ring.
Oh, absolutely. I'll give you some nice talent capsule speeches before you go out there.
I'll be so ready to go and get my butt kicked at that point.
Solid reach back there, JT.
Yeah. So we're hinting at it, but yeah, so you're back in on the games. So to make, you made that post about it and whatnot, but so you were out of the games for a period of time and you're back in. Kind of just talk about that and maybe what led to each decision on either end.
Yeah, okay, so the sale is final in 4 days, and I am semi-loath to talk about the specific incidents with former CrossFit CEO until it's complete, because I don't want to disrupt the selling process. But him and I had a history before. Not a lot of people know that. Folks were assuming that I was responding to one tweet that he put out, which was not really that insensitive, but it had opened the door for a lot of people to reveal that they had not appreciated his leadership before. And I was on another Zoom call that day of blah, blah, everything comes together. It was strike number 6. At that point, you're double out. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to participate in the games this year. So I backed out. And shortly thereafter, not due to my actions, due to the actions of other athletes, brands, sponsors, everybody came together basically delivering a referendum that current CrossFit leadership was not something they felt comfortable associating themselves with. He ended up agreeing to sell the company. And at that point, I was like, wow, I don't know why I would continue to be out. I've always loved CrossFit. I've always wanted to compete at the games. And the main reason that I did not want to compete is no longer part of the brand. So it was a pretty easy decision to come back at that point. So it was
Sure.
that's a really quick summary of what was a very complicated month for the whole sport, for the brand. And since then, there's some other things that have popped up. Like there's the athlete association now that I'm part of the committee for, and it's opened the door for us to maybe discuss some of the safety and health concerns we felt we couldn't really address in the environment that was previously had. So a lot of stuff has happened, but yeah, that's the short of it.
Chandler, so I noticed on social media, like your post and was very similar with like Noah Olson's. Did you guys like combine efforts, and was there a lot of dialogue going on? I'm sure you guys are close.
Yes. Yeah, he had his own.
Other athletes too, or talk to
Yeah, for those who don't know, Noah finished second at the 2019 games, so he's literally one of the fittest people alive, and we're both pretty good friends. And he had his own set of incidents, and there was that we talked pretty much every day. But as we were at that weekend, as stuff was going on, him and I chatted, and we're like, dude, like, why are we going if we feel this strongly about it? And kind of, it had been the idea that popped in both of our minds, and other people had discussed to us independently, and we talked about it to each other, and it was like, hey, let's do it. Like, there's no reason to stick around if we want to be forces for change in a positive light, then this is our chance to do it. So we both agreed to do it. We put up the same post at the same time, and then dealt with all the blowback coming back also at the same time, because it was not universally well received, which is like anytime you take a stance on anything, I guess it's something to be expected. So
sure. So talk me through you're talking about like, the circumstances obviously changed and whatnot, but I mean, it's pretty obvious, like there's not a strong presence for the African-American community in CrossFit. Do you take like a big responsibility, being that I think you're only African-American male that's qualified for the games this year? So what is your responsibility like that you feel for that?
Yeah, I feel like I owe it to all the groups that I'm a part of. So I mentioned, like the soldier, wrestler, African American, all like there's not a lot of any of those being represented at the games. Then it doesn't make sense to me, because I think there's a lot of soldiers who could benefit from functional fitness as like part of stuff that helps make them better soldiers. I think there's a lot of athletes who are both wrestlers and African Americans who can branch out in the sport. So for everything that the sport has given me, I've got to travel the world. I've got to meet a lot of really amazing people. I've got to become fitter than I ever thought I could be. Like, all the stuff the sport has given me, it's stuff that I want to give back to those folks. And I'm being uniquely positioned to communicate those messages back to those constituencies means that like I have to take this role super seriously. So if it's something that legit helps me get out of bed every day, knowing that like if I don't do this, then there's a soldier out there who's not going to get to experience the transformative power of functional fitness in their life and how it can help them in whatever it is they're trying to do. Or there's a little kid like me who's not going to see representation, and they're not going to pursue this, and there's like a second and third order effect of me choosing not to take this seriously that affects the whole next generation of wrestlers and all those other groups. So I take it super seriously, but that's also that's the reason why I left, and that's also the reason why I'm excited to be back and excited like to be helping frame this thing going forward, because it can, from a semi-selfish point, it can help me further that message and that story and ensure that I can keep communicating this to people for a longer time, because I really believe in it, like just for what it's done to me physically, mentally, spiritually, the whole gamut of improvement I think can come from pursuing fitness at a high level, and I like being able to share that with folks. So
sure. Well, I think that's a noble message. I don't think that's selfish. So
well, it's not like it I end up doing well from it too, like it's not like I benefit by having a larger audience too. So I don't want to like come off and make it sound like I'm this Mother Teresa character. Like I want to do well too, but
yeah, absolutely. It's your
Chandler,
goals, man.
You spoke about you just recently got back from Colorado. Was that shaped on some of the recent events? Who was all there? Kind of talk us through that. I felt like that was I saw pictures and stuff like that from the new CEO and Rich Froning and things like that. What was that all about? Was it like a meeting, or was it just workouts?
So for the longest time, CrossFit was solely owned by one person, Mr. Greg Glassman. He invented it. like develop the methodology from scratch and everything. But I don't think any other groups or any other people felt they had any representation within the sport. And so with the new ownership coming in, new CEO, Eric Rosa, he felt it was important to like let people know that their voice is being heard. So we had some affiliate owners, like Ben Bergeron was tuning in. We have high-level CrossFit HQ staff, Nicole Carroll, Dave Castro, Chuck Carswell were there. We had athletes, myself and Steph Chung were there, both games athletes, but also we had Katrin, David's daughter, former champ, Brent Fikowski, Pat Vellner, tuning in. Also, Richard Froning, greatest CrossFit athlete of all time, was there. And just kind of cut like a wide swath of people who have interest in advancing the brand, but also who hadn't really felt heard or listened to beforehand. Ben had dropped his gyms out of the CrossFit sphere after the Glassman controversy. I dropped out of the games. Froning had changed his competition from being a CrossFit one to being independent one. Nicole Carroll resigned her job from CrossFit HQ. Like these are all people that had like left at one point because we didn't feel that we had any other way to make our opinions and like voiced and felt. And then we were all invited back and all like shown that our opinions are going to be valued and can help contribute to bringing this thing going forward. So it was not to sound super goofy, it was like a time of healing and restoration, and that like everybody was there to help this thing that we all are very passionate about. And I think Eric did a good job of making it known that in this new era, our opinions would be heard and at least like help drive the decision-making process in some capacity versus no capacity.
That's awesome. I'm sure it was also impactful just from the COVID sense of like, it's hard to get around and see people these days. And like, just in the presence of a lot of athletes, I'm sure it probably felt just better from that avenue as well.
In a distant presence. But yeah, they took all the precautions, and doubly so because the city of Boulder has a lot of precautions taken in general. Folks, there's people from the sidelines are always going to have something to say about it, but it was definitely safer than what it appeared. And I can't ever make everybody happy, so I just need to try and stop trying to do that. But yeah, it was good to get out, but also good to know that they were taking care of it. And we're still trying to have the games amidst this whole situation as well. So,
well, we're looking forward to it, man. I know it's when is it? What's the dates again?
September 14th through 20th is the current time frame. So if the state of California still exists, it is coming up quick. I should probably.
So what does Taylor Smith got to get better at in the next month to come out on the top of the heap?
Some would tell you that I should learn how to execute a proper clean. Pete Athens failed me, and I never learned how to properly clean. I still do this like kind of like I catch on my toes and hit like a Michael Jackson tippy toe thing on my cleans. Probably gymnastics heavy, and then I got to get back into like my calling card for the last few years has been like a really high level of endurance. And over quarantine, I decided that I was going to fix my weakness of not being strong in like the traditional Olympic lifts, which I was successful in, but then also I forgot how to breathe. So I got to get back into shape. I've been doing a lot more aerobic efforts and kind of just trying to prepare my body for the amount of damage that it will take over the games, because the games is a really emotionally draining event, but also just like the volume and the amount of endurance pieces that you do in unoptimal conditions is pretty high. It's going to be hot. It's going to be dusty, all this stuff. So basically just getting into shape and then focusing on gymnastics is bringing my strength stuff down a lot. I haven't really been doing pretty much any strength work. Like Coach Young told me back in 2012, like I'm not going to lose a workout because I'm not strong enough. In this case, I might not win it, but no one's going to smoke me on like a back squat or a snatch or something. I can hang on that even if I don't do it for a long time, but I need to be able to breathe because the other 12 events that are not the back squat and snatch are going to require me to be fitter. So just been trying to bring up the volume of fitness stuff, like actually breathing hard versus just being strong and trying to look jacked.
Exactly. Shout out Paul Young. You got a career in CrossFit coaching if you haven't moved into that yet.
Absolutely. World class.
Hey, so let's run through a couple fun questions. We're running out of time, but these will merge wrestling and CrossFit really well. So if you were to put any CrossFit athlete through a grueling wrestling practice, who would it be?
Matty Fraser.
Yeah, just to see how he could do.
Well, no, because he's the person. Him and Bjorgvin, Carl Gudmundsson are the only two people I've never beaten any competition, and so I'd want to make sure I beat him, but also like physically beat him because it's really infuriating that he never loses. So
that's what I'm talking about. Okay,
well,
vice versa then.
Yeah. What wrestlers would you put? What wrestlers would you put through a CrossFit workout if you could? I think they could be elite, or they could be West Pointers, or
Okay, I'll answer that question in 3 levels. For elite world class guys, I do Kyle Dake because he does this really exotic functional patterns training stuff that I think is garbage, and I want him to be I want him to be exposed for foolishness. Maybe also Kyle Snyder because he's actually strong. For West Point / me personally, I lost to this guy Peyton Walsh. He was Navy starting 57.65 for my sophomore through first few years, and he beat me like 4 or 5 times. I'd want to put him through so I could finally beat him at something. For other West Pointers, I'd say Paul Hancock because I think he was one of the most naturally fit people I've ever met in my whole life, and if he had gotten serious about CrossFit, then he would be the one doing this podcast right now. So those are my answers there.
Okay, right on. So if you were going to pick the average high school wrestler to like start CrossFit, what workout would you start them on?
Ooh, great question.
Like for me, my team was Fight Gone Bad. That was the first thing we did.
So the thrusters got like a kind of high level of like complexity to it. And I think you'd lose the ability I'd probably make them do a strict Jackie. So Jackie is a workout where you row 1,000 meters, you do 50 empty bar thrusters to where you're not going to be super limited by mobility patterns and everything. Cause again, it's an empty bar, and then 30 strict pull-ups. So you're testing some gymnastics, there's a little bit of barbell movement, and then you're also like getting a cardio piece. Helen will actually also be probably a really good answer. It's running strict Helen. If you ran, did kettlebell swings, which you can teach to pretty much anybody, and it's kind of like a way to move it. And then you have the gymnastics. So you've got within the CrossFit spectrum, you've got like monostructural movements, gymnastic movements, weightlifting movements that combines all 3 into one. And it's over a time domain that wrestlers normally work in because that workout takes you 6.5 to 10 minutes. So Helen's my actual final answer.
Okay, similar question then. For other junior military leaders out there, what's a good workout for the platoon?
The United States Army physical fitness test designed to measure your cardio. Just make it cool.
Okay, check. If you could wrestle any CrossFit athlete, who would it be? It may be Matt Frazier, but what's the game plan if you're wrestling him?
Just dominate him. That's an easy question. Let me find. I'm trying to go through my head of people I don't like because there's not a whole lot of them. The Greek guy who cheated is out, so I can't really say him anymore. I'll say Bjorkman then because again, I've never beat him. Also, he didn't really care about anybody leaving and was talking some smack about that, so we'll say him. Yeah, I think he's a nice guy.
Here's a real sidewinder question. If you can make a CrossFit athlete who like has no clue about your Army career, if you could put them in the Army for a day, who would you want to live that life?
Ooh, it depends on if I want them to. Do I want them to succeed or fail?
I mean, it doesn't really matter. They can fail, I guess.
Okay. Fikowski would succeed because he's probably the most diligent person I've ever seen as far as scheduling and being like really meticulous with his time and everything. And for folks who I don't think, Noah's probably one of my best friends on planet Earth. I do not think his personality would mesh well with what you're asked to do as a United States Army junior officer. So I don't think he'd do as well as Pat would.
No, I don't think so either, based on what I've seen. Hardest Army wrestling practice?
Okay, I can answer this question on behalf of me and also on behalf of others because one of them is a story I tell all the time. December 13th, 2012, you were in the room. A certain Navy soldier now, or Navy whatever, sailor. Okay, no, a certain Navy squid now. He was not a squid at the time. He was trying to make 141, and we were doing like Shark Tank goes, and he had a breakdown in the middle of practice. And I don't know why if he wasn't wrestling at that time, but he cried, and he's one of the toughest people I've ever met. Probably one of the toughest people that you ever met as well, if you guys know what I'm talking about. So seeing that happen to someone I knew was as tough and physically capable as old JB was really significant. And I could point to any number of, I'd probably say my plebe year, the hill workout. I'm losing it just thinking about it.
Black Death or the ski slope?
Running the ski slope, running up and down the ski slope for the first time because I didn't know what was expected. I never ran 2 consecutive miles before I got to Beast. I'd just been doing one because I was very much in the CrossFit thing. I was like, I'll just go short. It'll make me good for long stuff. I had a real bad understanding of getting physically fit. And so you run like 2 miles just to get there. And we did it maybe 5 weeks in. I'd gotten better at running from Beast, but whoever I was partnered with, I ended up working a lot with Orion that day somehow. And he was obese in comparison to me. No, he wasn't obese. He's shredded, but he was way bigger than me. And he knew what to expect. So he conserved his energy at the right times and everything. And I'm just an eager guy, like trying to prove myself. So I think I was blown up about 5% of the way in. And I was deceived because we were like halfway up the hill. So I was like, surely this workout's halfway over, but that's how they get you. So that's the hardest one.
Get you every time.
All speak, get you every time. Well, I think that's all the questions I got. You got anything for him, B-Row?
How often do you listen to Turnpike Troubadours? I see a lot of plugs on there, and
every Tuesday. That's a fun story too. I know we're out of time. Wish we would talk more stories, but actually, here I want to extend this out. Whenever you guys need somebody to co-host, so that way we can interview one of you guys, call me up because I love podcasting. I love getting the chance, and I think people want to hear your guys' stories too. So that's me throwing my hat in the ring for that.
I got questions for JT.
Yeah, let me know when I can get back on and we can grill JT. But every Tuesday.
Good idea.
Coach Ward.
You're the first person who's recommended that. I didn't even think about that as an option.
See, here's the box, and I'm out here, just way outside of it, trying to think a little bit differently. Yeah, we listen every Tuesday. Coach Ward came in and dunked on everybody. We didn't have a coach for a while. It was just me and Coach Young hanging out. I thought I was running the show. I'm team captain. I'm very important. I was listening to something cool or whatever, and he says, "What the heck is this?" He didn't say that, but it was something like that. He turned it off. We didn't get music for the whole preseason, and he brought it back. And he was like, "You know what day it is? It's Turnpike Tuesday." I was like, "What is this?" And I hated it. And just like the Rafferty Stockholm Syndrome over time, it became my favorite band. And now I listen to it unironically all the time, but especially on Tuesdays.
Are you the best dancer in CrossFit?
Easily. Wow. Dex Hopkins.
Before we leave, and I'll be quick with this, but I'm not even joking. At Rafferty's wedding, Chandler busted his pants within 15 seconds of the start of the reception. 15 second full tear when you enter the dance floor.
Those are my flexing pants. It's important that people know that I lift in every situation, and like to show that my pants are too small. One, it highlights how big my muscles are, how much growth I've had, but also draws more attention to me on the dance floor. And I am just a total narcissist, so part of the plan.
That was my opportunity for a slight flex too, because I was the only other person who broke their pants on the dance floor that night. So.
You broke yours way harder than mine too. So team broke pants.
So you're like basically a games athlete, B-Row?
Masters 35
I'm
now.
the Masters division. I'm trying to my talent capsule's almost full, but I feel like in the Masters I may be able to get to that level.
Maybe you want to come to Kentucky, train at the Shark Tank. Either one of y'all, let me know, and I'll especially you, JT, because you were beating me up as a 33-pounder, and I've got some unfinished business for you too. So both you guys can come here and
look, call out. Yeah, put me on TDY, bro. I'll be there tomorrow. Let's go.
I wish I had that power.
All right, man. You got anything else, Chan?
Obviously, I always end all my interviews by saying beat Navy. So that I didn't get the chance to smack talk the younger guys as much as I wanted to, especially my class of 2020 dudes. But you guys are awesome. And from everything you did over the last 5 years, I appreciate y'all the most. They were awesome. That GA year was amazing for me. And how they responded after the death of Chris and came closer and also built the culture. So one that we're beating Navy's expected is really significant. I don't think we recognize the significance of what those guys have done, but they're amazing. So shout out to those dudes.
Division we lead.
2020.
It was great to have you on the podcast, Chandler. I really
thanks for your time, man.
Saturday morning.
Appreciate you guys having me. As always, beat Navy. Much love.
Thanks for tuning in to the BHAW Radio Show.
If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. If there's something you'd like to hear on a future show, reach out to us on any of our social media, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Or you can reach us at email, bhaw.radio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and as always, go Army, be Navy.